Entrepreneurially Thinking is a presentation of BioSTL and CET, Center for Emerging Technologies, with RareGem Productions, changing the way you view new ventures, including you on the pathway to success with your business in the St. Louis marketplace and beyond. Here's your hosts, Cheryl and Christy. Now let's get thinking entrepreneurially.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurially Thinking podcast. We're here to awaken your entrepreneur mindset and discover pathways for business success in the St. Louis marketplace and beyond. I'm Christy Maxfield.
And I'm Cheryl Watkins-Moore. Christy is our guru over there at the CET here in St. Louis. She's developing great programming to support our entrepreneurs out here, our very fledgling young entrepreneurs, and she's my right hand.
Cheryl is making sure that our world is more inclusive every day with the BioSTL Inclusion Initiative, making sure entrepreneurship and STEM opportunities are available to women and minorities and everyone who could possibly be interested in being part of the experience here.
So we're stepping out of our comfort zone. You know, we're usually buttoned up and business-like and everything. And we're asking you to step out of your comfort zone, getting you to start thinking about how to do business in a different way and thinking entrepreneurially.
It's really about taking the constraints off about how you think about business and new ventures. And you can join us to hear more of the Entrepreneurially Thinking podcast on all of your favorite streaming and social media sites. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and a whole bunch of other places where folks like you are looking to find the inspiration they need to take the next step.
So this has been a journey for us when we talk about entrepreneurially thinking. This is our 6th podcast, Christy.
It's going fast.
And it was frightening in the beginning.
Terrifying. And we weren't all that good in the beginning.
We were not all that good. So I think as an entrepreneurial or fledgling venture here with this podcast, we're doing like other entrepreneurs.
We're living it. We're walking the walk, talking the talk, doing it all. And glad to have you all with us as we go through this and find our way and to add value to what you're thinking about doing, what you are doing, what you will be doing in the future, because it takes a team and it takes a whole bunch of folks to help you think in new ways to get where you're going next. Because really what we know is what got you here doesn't necessarily get you there.
Absolutely.
And if you keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result, I think Einstein told us that means you're crazy.
Absolutely. So today we are very excited. We're helping you get out of your own way, addressing the obstacles in your path to success within the businesses. And so we're asking what's on your plate, right?
Absolutely. And what are you prioritizing? If you are going to go into business, what's the number one thing to drive that business forward? If you're just looking to be better on the job, doing what you're doing and making a difference in your workplace, what's that number one priority? And I like to really understand more from our guest, Jade Harrell, how to delegate, replicate, automate, and aggregate.
Absolutely.
Because it sounds like if I got all that going on, I should be able to make some magic in the world.
And Jade, if you guys don't know about Jade out here in the community, I don't know where you've been. Jade is a star here in our media arena here in the St. Louis market. She has her own radio show on a major media mogul.
iHeartRadio.
Yes, here. And she is starting her own new venture right now. And we are so happy that she's supporting our podcast and being a star here on as our guest today. So when we come back, Jade is going to join us and we have a lot to talk to her about.
Now here's Make It Happen with Keith Sales Pro.
In an article I read by Brian Hamilton, 5 reasons you need interns to build your business. He shared these 5. 1, they come with a lot of energy. I have found interns to be full of life and eager to learn. 2, they are inexpensive. They don't require benefits, and most college interns are happy to make anywhere from $8 to $18 an hour. 3, they come with fresh and bold new ideas. It is really true that young people have good ideas, in part because they come to problems from a position of naivety, which is actually an asset. 4, good interns turn out to be some of the best full-time employees. And finally, number 5, they will accomplish the unreasonable. In our experience, the college kids and even some high school kids are not anchored to normal ranges, so they can often bend what we think of as possible. Today, remember, it can happen. It will happen. And together, we will make it happen.
Follow Keith Sales Pro on Facebook or Twitter at Keith Sales Pro, or visit his website at keithsalespro.com.
It can happen. It will happen. And together, we will make it happen.
Hello, my name is Zim. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Cronus Sleep. Entrepreneurial thinking, to me, means taking the opportunity to reflect and grow.
Welcome back. We want to start you thinking about putting your business, whatever that may be, at the top of your to-do list. We're joined by an entrepreneur who has a lot of wheels in motion and plates in the air. Jade Harrell is joining us with RareGem Productions.
Yes.
And we're so glad to have you here today.
Well, thank you very much. I am honored.
Oh my gosh, we're honored, not you. Are you kidding? You have so many things that you're doing, Jade. First, tell us about your new venture here.
Oh, man. Well, the one that we're sitting in right now, I'm very proud to be a part of Entrepreneurially Thinking. And that, one, it serves our community, our startups, our businesses, people thinking about growing and beginning their businesses. But it helps me too, because this is the next phase. I'm in a growth phase for my business. And
what's the name of your business?
My business is RareGem Productions, proudly promoting, presenting, and producing positive programs. I love alliteration. So there's often that in the way I think and speak. But certainly my goal and my mission is to create positive media that adds value to people's lives, creates opportunities and resources for our underserved communities, and actually puts the matters that are important to us that we can utilize at the forefront as opposed to tossed to the dark sides of programming.
Well, you are developing this, I think, everything is at the right time, right place.
Give thanks.
And we are so proud to be aligned and you supporting this whole podcast with Christy and I stepping out on faith. I think everybody around this table is stepping out on faith.
Most definitely.
For sure. And I just want to also thank my team, especially Shu, our engineer who's with us, because it was also his faith in me that then became the catalyst for me to expand in a way that I hadn't before, because it is important to know that you cannot do this alone.
It's all about the team.
Yes, it most certainly is. So my spine, my rock, my base is sitting here making us sound and work the way we do now.
Absolutely. And we want to thank you too, because he makes us sound very, very great.
And
he's patient.
And just like with Jade, has helped us see our own potential.
Yes.
And have faith in us. So there's nothing greater than when somebody who is already an expert in their field recognizes someone else's potential.
Absolutely.
I have 20s all around for everybody.
I thought we talked 40, but anyway.
Yeah, well, on one of your previous podcasts, you spoke with an entrepreneur, Keith Turner, and he talked about how we go ahead and it's not necessarily about us, but how we can bring our skill and capabilities to a project and our clients. And that's where my strength is. I saw it when I spoke with you easily, Christy, in our initial conversations, and Cheryl had me at hello. So that is something I'm happy to contribute.
Well, thank you for harnessing us.
Yes.
I'm still trying.
Well, we're trying to.
You girls are some wild bunches.
Well, we figure we don't want to listen to anybody who's boring. And,
Exactly.
And if we can spend every minute we have together not only getting work done, which we do, but having fun while we're doing it, then we're doubly blessed.
So we're going to flip the script on you, Jay, because you are you're so eloquent when you're interviewing others. Now we are flipping the script. We are interviewing you.
Yeah.
And we want you to tell us about your journey. What was your thinking in becoming an entrepreneur? We want to hear your story.
Well, I think I probably was carving out my own path before I knew that's what I was doing. I did have a high school radio show, and I was very nervous about speaking.
Really?
So, right. I know, you can't shut me up now.
Actually, I think we all were probably called shy at one point, and then we got over it.
We did.
Right.
And let that be a lesson to anyone listening. Yes. You can get over it. Just keep pressing through. But essentially, I did have a creative ear. I grew up with my dad as a DJ, and so I was his roadie. I'd have to get his set ready before he'd go out. So I was always in the albums. I had turntables in my room and in our garage.
Wow.
So music was a thing for me. I was an only child till I was 15. So it really was an outlet for me. But because I couldn't sing and I didn't want to talk, I would blend and I would mix music and create new melodies and stories and narratives by putting the ideas together. So I've been kind of at it for a while. The thing is, nobody would allow me to even think about doing that as a career, as a future, because they were still calling my dad Deadbeat Harry or something like that. My grandpa called him Freddie something, never by his name, but because they never saw that there was value in doing something other than going to get a good job.
Right.
Well, they were waiting for him to quit the side gig and go get a real thing.
Exactly. And they kept, identifying him as that. But then we would retreat into our dungeon and really get in there and do some amazing things together. And I learned so much, and I was able to gain my confidence and flourish in that safe space that really wasn't visible to everyone. But as it were, my talent preceded me, and I got more and more opportunities to showcase what I could do. So then I was doing some local radio as the mixer. I would do some college tours. I would do some parties, and started to develop a space in and of myself. But I had great grades, did well in school, and was really trying to just get to college. I was the first in my family to go.
Amazing.
And so that was really where I had to place my determination and focus is, okay, you're going to go to college. You've got the potential to go to college. We want to see you do that.
Talk about making your pathway.
Yeah, well, how about that?
Forging your own way. I mean, that's an unblazed trail that you set in motion for yourself.
Well, I had a great mentor, and that's very valuable for me. One, our school counselor, she didn't really have a need to deal with me much. I wasn't a troublesome kid. That happened later in my 20s. But I would love to talk with her and be around her because of that influence and her knowledge and the things that she could share. But my grandmother, so when I applied to college, she applied to college.
No, really?
Yes, she did.
Oh, wonderful.
And the week after I graduated, I got to go to her graduation.
You're going to make me cry.
It's very powerful.
Did you guys go to the same school? Or?
No, we didn't. Actually, I went to Hampton, historically Black college, university. Yes. And I think, I always felt like maybe the stork dropped me in Denver because I really never was cool with the cold and always loved I yearned to be by the ocean. So Hampton was our home by the sea. And my counselor said, I know just the place for you. And I applied to a few other places, but my heart and mind was set on that based on my relationship with her and how I knew she knew. Because what would I know? I don't know what I'm going to go study. What example did I have?
Right.
So you had that safe place to learn your craft even before you knew you were learning your craft.
Yeah.
And then you had somebody who believed in you, knew where you would thrive even before you knew
exactly
what you were going to thrive in and how you were going to blossom. Those are amazing combination of circumstances.
Sure. I consider it good fortune and being blessed because that continued to be the narrative for a very long time. I'd keep doing the thing that I'm supposed to do, but while still doing the thing that I love to do on the side. They were guilty pleasures that then turned into be what is now my business and my offering today.
Wow. That's a great testament.
And going from doing a lot as a single woman, you've now gone on to be an entrepreneur, a mother, a radio personality, a television host, a speaker, producer. What aren't you doing? And how, that kind of brings us back to one of the excuses we often give ourselves. I know I've done it for me in my life is there's just not enough time.
Exactly.
And someone reminded me that sometimes your plate doesn't get bigger. You just have to take a few things off. And that can be really hard for all of us who are used to doing a lot and being good at doing a lot.
Right.
Yes.
So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how do you actually decide what gets on, what stays on your plate, and how to make that all work? I really hate the work-life balance.
I was just
because I don't believe there is actually a balance. I think
doesn't exist.
You integrate your life, and the pendulum swings.
Yes, it does.
And you got to pull it back when it gets out of whack, and that it's a constant struggle to find some sort of equilibrium, and you're lucky if you're just riding the wave, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to talk about work-life balance because I don't think that thing is, but I do want to talk about how you ride the wave.
Sure. And that's exactly it. Because if you go against the wave, then you'll be toppled by it. And that goes
Pummeled.
back to that. Yeah, exactly.
I thought drowned.
Yeah, all of that.
That happens. The shark gets you, you know.
Coral reef rips you
come
apart.
on, there you go.
It's just ugly.
All of that, it follows the laws of nature, which is then where you had to come to. And the difference of what I did before, when I graduated, I went to work in corporate America. I became an executive admin and then in marketing PR by day. And then I would grab the crates and go spin a set at night, you know.
Wow.
And, well, that could only last so long. And so I was going against the wave even then. But what I've learned, and I understand how it is because you're trying to do you while you're doing you at the same time.
Right.
But you just can't be in any of those places at once. And it's in recent knowing and recent discovery that I understand that there are things that are essential and that there really aren't priorities. There is a priority. And looking at where your business falls on your list of things to do compared to the things that you truly desire in life is a very important lens to place before you. One, our life is short.
Yes.
Two, work and life are not separate. And I don't want any other person ever again, which is why my mission is what it is, to live a miserable existence because they feel like they have to based on their circumstance.
Compartmentalize.
Exactly. And it just doesn't happen that way. I am a mother. I am a wife. I am a community member and I'm in media. So how will that all work? Well, it comes to making some trade-offs, and I have to highly recommend a book that I felt like was transformational for me.
Yes.
And
We
that
love
was,
resources.
Yes. Essentialism by Greg McKeown. And it's really considered to be the disciplined pursuit of less. And the idea behind it is that we're making the wisest possible investment of our time and energy in order to operate at our highest potential in what is essential. There's plenty of things we could do. We're busy.
Right.
There's a lot of things.
And things are exciting. Shiny objects.
Yes, squirrel. And it's easy to go along that path, but we forget that we have more freedom in the more focused and less distracted we become. That structure actually gives us freedom. And truth be told, many of us that are in business and have these great ideas, because I can tell you, I was 27 and awakened out of my sleep, as you refer to often, Cheryl, about this whole RareGem Productions idea, you know, and it was called RareGem when it woke me up. Hey. Right. But that was 27.
Right.
I'm 20 years past that now.
You look fabulous, girl.
Give thanks. Give thanks. I appreciate that. But I can tell you that the bright look and light in me is being in the place that is essential for me, and that is operating authentically. So I don't want to see anyone else feeling that their circumstance has to determine the direction that they
And
go
I think what you just said is so interesting because we have the idea early on, but sometimes we don't have the knowledge or experience to make that idea a realization. And I think sometimes you're given that idea and you're put on a path, right? To be able to make that idea a realization. A baby's not born at the moment of conception. It takes 9 months to build that baby, right? Not build that baby, but grow that baby.
It felt like it.
So I think that what you just said is key. You have the idea at 27, but it's coming to fruition, years later. Sure. What do you think that you've learned along that path? How are you building that baby?
Sure. Well, the difference is putting the attention on the baby, because energy flows where attention goes. And again, I kept doing it on the side. And what I've learned today is that if this is what I want, one, it's not a part-time vision.
Right.
This thing was humongous when it came to me. It was beyond what I could have conceived. So then I'm thinking, I need a building. I need this and this. All these are things I need before I can.
Right. Which
means I need to earn and do these other things in order to do the thing that has called me as the very most purposeful thing that I can do. And with that in mind, I had to shift my thinking to everything else is supplemental to this.
Yes.
So how do I do this and then fill in the spaces that are necessary with the others? And that comes to deciding what is most important to me.
And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, sometimes they get into the thing, I have this vision, but just like you said, I need a building. I need this. I need that before I can actually start to move out.
Or I can't do it.
Right.
I have this idea, but I'm not that kind of person. Who's going to let me try that?
Right.
Who's going to believe that I can do it? We do a lot of talking in our head.
Negatively.
Getting that idea out, I would imagine Jade was a big part of actually making it a priority was, getting it out of your head.
For sure. And I encourage that. And this is why we have this program. And I'm so behind this program because it is a mindset. So when I woke up that night, I wrote down as much as I could and it was amazing. And then I put it in a folder and put it away because I had to get up and go to work.
Right.
Don't look at that. But I've pulled those things out and they've all come to be now that has been my focus. And that has become my true one thing.
When you have to get up and go to work and you know what your priority should be, you know what your day-to-day is, we all don't have unlimited resources, particularly financial.
For sure.
How practically, because I can hear people in my head saying, "Oh, that's really nice.
Right.
Yeah, that's really nice if you get to do the thing you love." But we all don't get that opportunity. I can hear people saying, "I'm sure you had somebody in your life who could make that happen for you. I don't have that kind of person." There's lots of things we tell ourselves about what other people have that may or may not be true. So what gave you that ability to step on out in that way, that real practical way?
Right. So this goes to what's on your plate. So yeah, if I've got the bills to pay, I've got rent. I didn't have children at the time. Man, those are
expensive
days.
propositions.
Those were,
those
were the easier days.
Those were, these youngins eat a lot.
Right.
But it's what's on your plate, but you cannot eliminate the other things. So there were some things I did do on the side. And so, I still made the mixtapes or I did a show or two. And then, like I said, I was in flux and I did both. But one of the things you said, I don't get to do that. I don't know if I get to do that. I got to do these other things. We come to a point where you have to understand it is all that you get to do because it's a matter of what we're choosing. The lifestyle I'm choosing ultimately the lifestyle that I want. I wanted to be an at-home mom for the early days of my children's lives. So I was not going to be full on anything.
Right.
I worked at UPS International PR and after maternity leave, it was time to go back. I pulled up to that parking lot and I just couldn't.
Yeah.
I just couldn't, but I made it okay. Gave myself permission to say, well, you don't have to. Now, mind you, that came from some really awful experiences at some other places, a bad job, a bad boss, bad habits of my own, some turnovers and things that you learn that, well, as you're complaining, this is awful. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be. If you're saying that a lot.
Yep. You need to look at that.
You do. And then how awful would it be if you weren't? Right?
You know what? That catchphrase, life is too short, but it really is too short. And you only have so much amount of time in your day. And I think when you are talking about, the essentialism, I love that, the disciplined pursuit of less.
That's right.
Talk to us about, we talked about this earlier, delegating, replicating, automating, and aggregating. What does that mean to you? How do you do that? And how do you fit that in your life, especially with everything going on in your life? Sure.
Well, that goes back to what Christy was talking about, where folks say, well, you probably had somebody or you probably had things in place. And honestly, and full disclosure, until I went through square one here recently with you all and Cheryl said, you need to do square one. There were, there's one thing to have been a business major and been in business, but business acumen and how to apply it are totally different things. And I discovered that along the way. And that comes from learning what your capabilities are within yourself.
We want to talk about that more after we take a quick break.
Let's just take 5 and address this stress. Do you feel pressured in many areas of your life and unable to complete things successfully? Do you find yourself crying all the time or unable to cry at all? Have you become more accident prone? Well, if you answered yes to 2 or more of these questions, you could use to reduce your stress. When we're experiencing too much lasting negative stress, we got to do something about it. The research is clear. Toxic stress is making us sick, but you can be alive and well. Find out more at aliveandwellstl.com.
Hi, I'm Sequana Pryor of Pricore Technologies, and thinking entrepreneurially means focus, passion, drive.
Well, we're back with Jade, and we've been talking about prioritizing and making sure that we're really clear on the life that we want. And I wanted to touch a little bit more on the self-talk piece of that and the stories we tell ourselves. You were saying before our break about, there was no magic formula. You didn't have a pot of gold to underpin what you were doing. And I know personally one of my self-talk strategies when I went out and did the entrepreneurship thing was to remind myself that I know how to work hard and I'll never be without a job if I need to go back and find one. Right.
Nice,
and so I would reassure myself that if the very worst thing happened and this thing didn't fly and there was no money left in the bank, that I could count on myself to figure out a plan B, C, D, and E. But I also learned that I could not be thinking about plan B while I was doing plan A. Right. I couldn't have a toe, saying, well, maybe I'll do a consulting thing on the side while I try to get Mission Center up and running. And because it just wouldn't work. So I had to be 300% into Mission Center while I was doing it. And just know that if I needed a plan B, I would figure out a plan B, but I could not give it any time and attention right now.
Well, you're certainly right in that. I'm glad you said that. I still don't have a pot of gold. I know that there is one, but at least there's a pot now.
Awesome.
And a window to for those that know the saying. Right. But that does come along the way. And you can't have a plan. You can't be focused on or knowing that you have a plan B or operating with a plan B in mind, because it will disrupt the shape of your A. And it's becoming where A is your priority. It is your one thing. It is the thing at the end of the day that where I'm going to put all my cards over here. I went to school, I laid my foundation, I have all those things. But when you go ahead and say, ready, set, go, then you're saying go and somebody close the gate behind me so I don't run back and retreat. Because it will be, no one's ever succeeded their way to success. There will be highs and lows and fluctuation, but every day and step forward gets you closer to that pot of gold, and what that looks like. And then it'll become more clear. But what's different now and what's different than the mindset that I had at 27, technology changed everything. So when I talk about those new opportunities and awarenesses, see, we're right now a part of what's changing. I didn't have a podcast to listen to,
right?
Of someone saying, hey, here's what it is. Before, I wasn't even going to come to St. Louis. I'm so glad I did. And had I not, I'd have been comfy and cozy
somewhere else
doing something else. But then it was like, you will be able to breathe. There will be oxygen there.
It's a lower altitude.
Yeah. That's,
you start out in Colorado. It could only get better. Your breathing could only improve.
That's the truth.
But I think what's so cool about, and we've said this, knowing that, St. Louis has so many resources for young entrepreneurs. I think that's what sets the city apart. We have other ills, but I think if someone is really interested in focusing on growing a business here, we have people like Christy and Square One, that they provide that business acumen into actualization with great mentors to help along the way.
And tools and resources.
Yes.
See, but the thing is the knowing. And that's why we are here. And the work that we're doing is to make sure there is a knowing and awareness of it.
Because there's tons of resources that people don't know about that too, from funding opportunities, from different types of ways you can grow your money, grow your business without using your money, and that are not tied to equity. So there are opportunities here. It's just really, if you're interested, you really need to delve into the ecosystem to find out more about it. And I like what you said. You know, you had to look down the barrel, and basically say, I'm doing this and I'm moving my business forward. But there are other people too who, you know, might not have the opportunity to say, I'm all in.
Sure. But what changed for me was knowing that those resources were around.
Yes.
Because I was still scared as all get out when you pushed me and said, get out there. Because I'm thinking, well, I'm good, but like, really? Could I actually realize that? That goes, it's not a part-time vision. It was big when it hit you.
Right.
And we seem to, the other book that I wanted to be sure to mention was The One Thing. And The One Thing is by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. And on one of my other shows, we actually got to speak with Jay specifically. And there's a thing that we have, it's a fear of big.
Yes.
We are like,
don't hide your light is what they say.
That's right.
We have a fear
of big.
Right. So then all of a sudden, well, we're scared of big because one, we don't know that we can realize it. Our approach to it is coming from a place of unknowing. But in that one thing, you know, getting over that fear of big comes from these things we're talking about. I believe my perspective changed when I knew that it was possible. When there were examples of it, I knew that there was a space for me. Because before then it was really very intimidating. So I most certainly would say not only plug in, but know that they are there for you to start to get curious and seek it out. One example we heard from another guest was pretend like you're visiting your city for the first time and figure out, oh, where's there a great place to eat? Where's there a great place to get my car fixed? Or, hey, where can I grow my business? And being curious will help start opening doors. And the more that you move forward, the more you will see. And then also probably find people that not only are going through with you, but the supports that are there to help you get it.
And you probably didn't think of it this way when you were 27, 26, 27.
Who knew any of that was part of it?
But in essence, you almost needed the technology to flip.
I couldn't have
you know, I sometimes work with entrepreneurs and I say, this plan can work, but not under current circumstances. Right.
That's
something
huge.
else is going to have to change in the world. Like, people are going to have to start funding that kind of thing for you to get it. But when they do, you've got the roadmap.
Right.
That's huge.
You know, so you didn't necessarily have to go out and create the technology, but little did you know that you could live into your dream most fully with an alignment of happenstance in some cases, but an alignment of growth in other areas that made your dream even more possible.
Yeah. Well, there was a song that we used to dance to in the club last night. The DJ saved my life. Well, right now technology is saving my life, and I could not operate in this way if it weren't for the technology that exists. And so when we talk about what's on your plate, the thing is you can replicate, delegate, automate, and aggregate with technology.
So how are you doing that?
Oh man. Well, you know, we opened up the laundry list of things that I have before me, but for sure, there's only one me. There's only one you. No one's like you. And sometimes with that, when we focus on that as the only way something can get done, we miss out.
Right.
So
So you're not the only way that things can get done. It was a big revelation for you.
It was the difference maker.
Wow.
For me. Because one, not talking about it limits you to the help that you could have, but also limits you to how you can empower somebody else. What do you know when you call it an ecosystem in some places, but an ecosystem, things work together and interchangeably in the entire environment for the good. So operating solo limited me. So I didn't understand that before, but I tell you how I love alliteration, but that's where these eights come. I said it's the ites and the eights. So the eights are when you delegate, and if you look it up in the dictionary, it means hand it over.
Right.
And these, I know these are
rarely
our
are there
babies.
things you can just hand over. There's usually a transition period, which is also the thing I think we forget.
Very important. Right. Right. But how
But
can
also
you know
when
that?
you do hand off, that's scary.
Heck yeah, 'cause that's your baby.
Exactly.
But you know what? One other thing that I want to just kind of flick my fellow entrepreneurs and pioneers on the shoulder and say, not only is it your baby, but excuse me, get yourself free of yourself so you can be more open to build your vision.
Right.
So handing it over means getting it out of your head too. How can you even tell somebody what to do or show them or delegate if you don't put it out there?
Oh, but people are afraid somebody's going to steal their idea.
Well, I invite somebody to come and try to do this in this way.
It's hard work.
Good luck.
Fill in the blank. Whatever the enterprise is, it's hard work. And so I always tell folks, you're not the first person who had this idea. World's too big for that to be the case, but
That's
you might
shocking.
be the first person to execute it. And so if we
Exactly.
can actually figure, if this is as good an idea as you think it is, then there has to be an execution strategy that makes it real in the world. And
you don't
nobody
have to
can
know
steal
it
that.
yourself.
No,
Right.
you can't really.
You can't, right.
And I think that's the beauty of our ecosystem. You know, people are so willing to help you, but you have to be willing to talk about what your needs are.
And you don't have to give away the special sauce.
But you have to be willing to engage. There are great opportunities around the ecosystem just to go and have a conversation with folks. Venture Cafe is a wonderful opportunity to meet
Go
different
pitch
people.
at 1 million cups.
Absolutely.
But even before that, I think that being willing to talk about the idea.
Absolutely.
And then be willing to hear what other folks have to say. Because I'm sure when you shared your idea initially, Jade, there were folks who were saying, well, it won't work if you do this, or it won't work if you do that, or, you know, how are you going to da-da-da-da-da?
The howies. The howies in our lives.
Yeah, but you kind of flipped it to the what ifs.
I did.
And you did that in square one.
Yeah, I did.
So maybe you can talk to us about, you went into square one with one vision. Did it change? Did anything make you pivot?
What freed you up?
Yeah. And when you came out, maybe, was it the same vision or how was it altered?
It was completely changed, which is why I'm so good at these eights right now. Because it was clear to me that there are systems, there are teams, there are resources, there's education, there are funds, there are mentors, there are things that were right there readily available. So I'm going to speak a little bit to the fact of being an African American woman.
Yes.
Available was not a common word. Accessible was not a common word. It was something to get over, some obstacle to have to pass through or by in order to realize. Square one to have, when I got accepted into the program.
You called me.
Are you going to tell me? I felt like I had.
She was so happy. I was very happy for her.
I'm going to Willy Wonka. I got the golden ticket because I yearned for it. Because then it was, I don't know how pole vaulters do what they do and get over that bar, but many of us won't try because it looks like it's impossible. Right. And so even running with that long thing, which could be your business idea, you're running with that long thing. And you're like, well, what do I do?
You step back and look at, they got a coach.
Come on.
They've been practicing.
There's a mat.
They fell a lot. There's a mat. All those things factor in.
I discovered that in square one. And I had access to executives in successful businesses that were people we would never have been able to talk to. I'm talking about the folks that invented stuff came and spoke with us. I mean, I wrote it down. I'm talking to the Gillette vice president. Things like that. Right. Where would you have access? So square one gave an awareness through access that then opened up the doors to greater thinking and possibilities for me. And that was, you can be a great entrepreneur, but not as a solopreneur. So you must replicate yourself somehow, reproduce your efforts. If something's working, reproduce it. Do twice. If you're cooking one pot of spaghetti, put another one on there to take care of next week, which comes into being a mama.
Right.
I mean, literally, I use it as an analogy, but literally, these kids are going to want to eat again Thursday.
Yeah. In probably 2 hours.
In 2 hours. So meal planning. Meal planning helped me be a better entrepreneur. There's also, what do I need to adjust, to automate, to make routine, to combine, to allow me to do this thing that's really important to me.
And you talk too about giving others the opportunity to step up. I mean, sometimes I think when we don't ask, I'm not saying it'll get you fed and it won't make you sick.
I heard about your mash.
But you know what? Yeah, anytime, girl. Oh, girl, you made me lose my truth.
I'm so sorry. Giving other people a chance to help you.
So you talked about giving people the gift of stepping up.
Yeah.
Right? And I think sometimes we deny people that gift because we don't want to be a burden.
Or we don't want to show our slip. Our sausages.
Totally. Well, I don't know about sausages, but we don't want to be vulnerable. Right? Because I got it all together. I don't want you to see behind the curtain. Right? And, even in making this podcast possible, letting other people see behind the curtain, just sitting in front of you and Shu and not being good right out of the box. Right?
But
and
you were.
Not being,
you just didn't know.
Girl, you made me, you make us look good.
Exactly.
But
Vidal Sassoon. I'm sorry I had to, but that's an idea.
You're dating us
I'm
now.
just saying, it always starts as an idea.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So who stepped up? Who took your invitation to
Oh my
step up?
gosh. So I say to other pioneers that there's always a first. Once you get your first, that's all you need. Then you could say, I did this with, or I did this where, and here's what I did. And then just go do it again. Ask someone else, learn from it, take a look at it, reevaluate it, see if you charge too much or too little or at all.
It's like a pilot, right?
Like a
There it
pilot,
is.
right. It happened is kind of the big idea, is that it happened. It can't happen if you don't step into it and make it your thing to do.
And I think, prioritizing, because we are, the three of us, there are 3 women sitting here and we all have
Sagittarians.
Yes, all Sagittarians.
Oh, there's a lot of fire in the room.
And manure. We're horses. and hair. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's a whole thing.
Nelly.
Yes, it's a whole
Nelly.
thing.
And Nelly.
Yeah.
But I think we all have different priorities in our life,
and they shift from day to day, if not from hour to hour.
Yeah.
I mean, before we got on the podcast, I'm getting a text from my kid talking about, I need a charger. What am I going to do with a charger right now?
And those things don't go away. Those are what I call the improv artists in our life. But you still have your stage play. But you get to set the stage. And you can say, here's what I would like this show to look like. You get to design your own show. It's not I got to show up for this. You get to design your own show. And there will be improv artists. There'll be times that change and things that change. And so then you just come back to your script.
I think that's a good way to put it, because life happens. Everything happens. And I think that being able to, I think when one of our guests talked about, you're going to have great things happen and you might have some not great things happen. How you bounce back, how you react to those things, how you integrate things into what your vision is key, because a lot of those things are distractions, which can derail you, right?
They will.
And Keith Turner, who I think touched on some of those things when we had a conversation with him, also talked about getting over what people thought.
Yes.
Or what people might think.
Yes.
If it didn't actually, that stage play didn't turn out exactly how he planned.
But I think that's a fear, don't you think? And I think it's a bigger fear for women. If I fail, oh my God, what happens? I'm exposed as a failure. And it's like, I think you have to have that mindset of, I don't care what people think.
Even if you do, they're going to think stuff whether you get it right or not.
Exactly.
And whether you worry about it or not.
Exactly. And that's where I say you have to step out.
And they'll tell you about it.
But that's where you have to step out, don't you think? And say, you know what? Yeah, it happened. Learn
I think
something
actually
from it.
talking about the fear I mean, kudos to Keith for recognizing that that was one of the things holding him back. And then at this stage in his career and in his journey as an entrepreneur, to step back and say, that's what was keeping me. It wasn't, I didn't have enough money, but I didn't have a lot. You know, it wasn't that I don't have the support I need or that I don't believe I'm capable. It's, I'm really worried what other people will think. And, you know, I'll admit that that's one of the things I struggle with, you know, because I don't want to look less than or, you know,
crazy or stupid.
Silly. I'll go for silly, but I don't want to look less than to the people I think opinion matters.
But here's the thing.
That can be limiting.
We'd be naive to think that we actually can go into another person's mind, grab hold of their eyeballs, and make them see things the way we want them to see things.
Oh, if only
Who can we do that with any other person? But many people try, whether we're doing it for ourselves because how we want to look or whether we're trying to change somebody else's view. And ultimately, we don't have that control. We weren't given that control. We didn't create this thing.
So it's back to what can I take control over what is within my scope of influence.
But influence yourself in your design.
Yes.
Influence yourself and appreciate that. Practice falling if you gotta, you know, practice
and everybody's
the fall.
not going to agree with what you're doing. Everybody's not going to agree with your vision. I think Keith said it before too. You have to,
if you agree with them, you're going to disagree with your vision.
Yes.
You're going to be the greatest person who disagrees with your vision if you start agreeing with everyone else.
But that's the whole thing with mentoring too, you know, and being an entrepreneur, taking in advice. You have to be, as that entrepreneur, the one that says, okay, you know, this is great advice, but what am I going to incorporate? If I need to pivot, I need to pivot. But am I pivoting for something better or am I pivoting away from my vision?
That's beautiful. And that probably is my biggest takeaway from square one is pivot, baby. Pivot. Exactly. Exactly.
You have to decide ultimately too if the company you can build is the company you want to build.
Yes.
And those can be challenging moments for entrepreneurs as well. So there's always something that could be done differently. There is a great value in seeing your vision, believing in your vision, holding on to your vision, and yet being flexible enough to achieve your vision a different way. I love the military analogy of the commander's intent. The commander intends for you to take that hill. So long as you do it legal and morally, don't really care how you get to the top of that hill, right? So being your own commander, knowing what your intent is, and then being okay with the fact that that path is probably going to change before you get to the top of that hill.
Absolutely.
So what other takeaways would you give to our listeners as they, you know, wrestle with these things, wrestle with themselves? I mean, what goes on between our ears is sometimes a lot harder and harsher than what anyone else could ever say or expect of us.
Well, then I'll keep referring back to the two books that were so influential for me. But to preface that is whatever the obstacle is, figure out how to remove it. And for me, even with books, I didn't have time to sit down and read a book, but I'm always in motion. A car, a commute, a wait, any of those things, audiobooks. And through that, I got these books that gave me more tools. So no is a complete sentence, and that frees you up. You don't have to add any more.
You can just say no.
Just say no.
I read somewhere that no is a sign of a good leader because most people will say yes to a lot of things, but having the ability to say no is a sign of a really good leader. And also too, I'm a believer in a higher being. And I always...
Would that be God?
That would be.
Okay. I like him too.
I do too.
By any name.
I mean, it could be Big Bird.
Exactly.
It's higher. He's higher.
It's higher. But I heard that you can't trust and worry at the same time.
I love that.
And that is a really deep thought.
It is a deep thought.
You cannot trust in something that's going to take care of you and your situation and worry about it at the same. You have to let go, right?
One will eventually take care of the other. So the other thing would be a quote from Essentialism that's only once you give yourself permission to stop trying to do it all, to stop saying yes to everything, can you make your highest contribution toward the things that really matter. And then the very last thing that is transformational and will adjust from moment to moment and day to day is asking a very focusing question. What's the one thing I can do today, this week, this year, right now, that by doing it, everything else will either be easier or unnecessary? What is that
Those
thing?
are great words to leave with our listeners. I think those are the words that can carry us onto greater things in a very quick way.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And sign up for Square One.
Yes.
Well, and they're in, I think one of the values in Square One, and you very eloquently and kindly illuminated, I should say, the value that it brought into your life. But sometimes it's simply having an accountability partner and the structure of a program to help you take those next steps. So, whether it's needing to tap into the resource, understanding that you're not alone in the world, or simply needing a step-by-step way of going about what is a rather chaotic and non-linear experience in life. Right. There's certainly other resources besides Square One in our community, but finding the one that works for you. If it's Grace Hill, great. If it's our small business development centers, great.
Right.
If SBA has wonderful programs.
Right.
SCORE has great mentors. There's lots of different resources in our community, and you just need to find the one that helps you focus in on doing those things, and then take the words of wisdom from Miss Jade and start to see how your life is going to change.
Excellent. Absolutely. Making room to win. What's on your plate, right?
That's it.
Love it.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening. You can find us on all of your favorite digital platforms, and we look forward to having you join us again for Entrepreneurially Thinking.
Changing the way you view new ventures, igniting your thinking about entrepreneurship. It's Entrepreneurially Thinking. Get connected and discover more. Visit our website for show notes, resources, information about our guests, upcoming events, and of course, all your favorite episodes. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them for us in the comment sections, and be sure to leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes. The best way to show love is to share. Let everybody know that you're thinking entrepreneurially. So visit our website, entrepreneuriallythinking.com. #ETHINKSTL. Entrepreneurially Thinking is another positive production of RareGem Productions. Thanks for listening.